morning. You're listening to The Brief Wake Up, your mindful start to the day. I'm Handel, your daily coffee companion, helping you wake up informed, thoughtful, and maybe just a little amused before the day gets old. If you're commuting, corralling kids, or just standing in line for caffeine, you're in the right place. Let's get you caught up. Let's start with what should be our priority, our health. Today on the health front, we will discuss mercury toxicity, what it is, how it builds up, and how to protect yourself. When we refer to mercury, we are not referring to the planet nor the thermometer from science class. We are referring to organic mercury causing toxicity, a real and often overlooked health issue that can sneak up on people who think they're eating clean. Mercury isn't one substance. It exists in different chemical forms, and each behaves differently in the body. There's elemental mercury, the shiny liquid from old thermometers. Inorganic mercury, found in some industrial settings and unregulated skin creams. And then there's the big one, organic mercury, specifically methyl mercury, the kind that builds up in fish and in us. Here's how it works. Small organisms absorb mercury from water. Fish eat them. Bigger fish eat the smaller ones. And because mercury doesn't break down or leave easily, it gets more concentrated as it moves up the food chain. By the time you reach shark, swordfish, king mackerel, tilefish, and some types of tuna, the mercury levels can be extremely high. Most adults have their highest exposure from seafood. For pregnant women and young children, this matters even more because mercury crosses the placenta and directly affects brain development. It impacts how neurons form, how connections are made, and later how a child learns, speaks, and moves. So how does mercury affect the body? It targets the nervous system. At first, the symptoms are vague and easy to miss. Tingling in the hands and feet, burning or numbness, headaches, irritability, difficulty concentrating and feeling that your balance is a little off. As levels rise, it can progress to muscle weakness, impaired coordination, hearing or vision changes, and even memory problems. And the tricky part is this: the body doesn't clear mercury quickly. It can take months, sometimes years, for levels to slowly disappear once exposure stops. Who else is at risk? Dental workers exposed to amalgam dust, people using unregulated skin lightening creams imported from overseas, workers in mining or chemical industries. But for most of us, mercury exposure comes from what's on the plate, not what's in the workplace. So how do you stay safe without giving up seafood altogether? Because seafood is still one of the healthiest proteins we have. Choose low mercury fish like salmon, sardines, trout, shrimp, cod, and pollock. These give you protein, omega-3s, and heart benefits without the heavy metals. Limit high mercury fish to occasional meals. Think once a month, not every week. If you're pregnant, planning a pregnancy, or feeding young kids, stick strictly to the low mercury list. Your doctor can help guide you. And if you're worried you've been overexposed, a simple blood or urine test can measure mercury levels. If they're elevated, reducing exposure is usually enough, and in more serious cases, medications called chelators can help pull mercury out of the body. The big takeaway? Mercury toxicity is preventable. You don't have to avoid seafood, you just have to choose wisely. Think of it as eating smart, not scared. On today's major news headline, Election delay and a pivotal vote in Washington. Good morning. In Washington this week, a new face stepped onto the House floor, but only after weeks of delay. Adelita Grijalva, Democrat from Arizona's 7th District, was sworn in on November 12, 2025, more than 7 weeks after winning a special election in late September. That delay was unusual, unprecedented in recent memory. Grijalva's election came after the death of her father, longtime Representative Raul Grijalva, and the seat remained vacant while the lower chamber and the country were mired in a government shutdown stalemate. Why was she held back? The Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, cited procedural reasons and timing of the full session. Democrats and Arizona officials, however, alleged the delay was politically motivated, pointing to one key fact: Grijalva was poised to become the 218th signature on a discharge petition to force a vote on previously sealed files tied to the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Her signature would have triggered the petition. On the day she took the oath, Grijalva wasted no time. Within hours, she signed the petition, officially giving it the critical 218th signature needed for House action. So let's break this down. There was a representation gap, with her delay leaving roughly 800,000 Arizonans without full representation for weeks. Political leverage was affected, with the petition in question revolves around transparency and accountability, two flashpoints in a deeply polarized Congress, all also intertwined with legacy and change. Grijalva succeeds her father, carries forward progressive priorities on immigration, tribal rights, workers, and the environment, and now steps into a more national spotlight. So what happens next? For her district, representation resumes. For the House, the Epstein files vote could be a defining moment. And for Grijalva, stepping in with a campaign hat already on for 2026, this is her launchpad. In short, one election win, a dramatic delayed start, and now momentum on a high-stakes petition. The question now will be, how will she turn that momentum into policy and action? And how will the majority react when transparency and politics collide? And for tech and culture, the paradox that brings you back. Welcome back to our Time Traveler's Paradox series. Part 1 asks what happens when something has no beginning. Today, we're flipping the question. What happens when you try to erase the beginning? This is the grandfather paradox, the one everybody thinks they understand until they actually sit with it. Picture this. You travel back in time and prevent your grandfather from ever meeting your grandmother. You've just erased the conditions that lead to your own birth, which means you should vanish. But if you vanish, then you couldn't have gone back in time. And if you couldn't go back, then your grandparents would meet, which means you would be born, which means you could go back and stop them again. A feedback loop of destruction, a timeline trying to cancel itself. The paradox sits right at the edge of physics and philosophy. It forces us to ask whether the universe would break or whether it would fight back. There are two big camps here. The first is Novikov's self-consistency principle. This is the idea that the universe doesn't allow contradictions. If you go back in time, every action you take will fold itself into events that were always meant to happen. You can't stop your grandparents from meeting because, in some small or unexpected way, your interference becomes one of the things that ensures they do meet. In other words, the timeline is flexible, but it's not stupid. It bends around your choices to protect itself. Then there's the second camp, the multiverse interpretation. This is the branching reality model. You go back in time, but instead of breaking your original timeline, you kick off a new one. In that new branch, you never exist. But in the original one, the one you came from, Your grandparents lived their lives untouched. This version doesn't protect the timeline, it protects possibility. Every choice creates a fork. Every fork creates a world. And here's where the tech and culture lens comes in. Modern physics, quantum computing, even high-level simulation research, they all circle around the same question. Is reality deterministic and self-correcting, or branching and infinite? Because the grandfather paradox isn't just about time travel. It's about whether the future is fixed, whether the past is negotiable, and whether you are the same across all versions of yourself. And if multiverse theory is right, some version of you is making a different choice right now. Some version of you never asks these questions, and some version of you never existed in the first place. In part 3, we zoom all the way out, past time, past humanity, to the cosmic contradiction that keeps scientists up at night. We tie back in the Fermi paradox. If advanced civilizations exist, where are they? And why haven't any of them shown up in our timeline? That one changes the scale of this entire series. And for our commemoration segment, today, November 13th, we mark World Kindness Day, a day created to remind us of something that should be simple, natural, and constant, but in the rush of everyday life, often gets lost. Kindness sounds small: a smile, a moment of patience, holding a door, checking on someone you haven't heard from in a while. But biologically, socially, emotionally, it's powerful. Acts of kindness lower stress hormones, strengthen the immune system, and even improve heart health. Kindness literally changes the chemistry of a moment, both for the person who gives it and the one who receives it. But here's the deeper point. Kindness is not passivity. It's not weakness. It's strength under control. It's the ability to respond to the world with softness, even when the world is hard, and to create light even when everything feels heavy. Kindness is also contagious. A small gesture today, a call, a text, an apology, a thank you, ripples outward in ways you'll never fully see. Someone's day changes. Someone's tone softens. Someone remembers that the world isn't as cold as it felt an hour ago. So today, take a moment to choose kindness on purpose. Not because it's simple, but because it changes the direction of things. Kindness is the quiet force that keeps us human. And today, on World Kindness Day, we honor it by practicing it. Today we broke down Mercury Toxicity, what it is, where it hides, and how simple choices can protect your nervous system, your future health, and your family. We looked at the high-stakes delay behind Representative Adelita Grijalva's swearing in, the political tension surrounding the Epstein Files vote, and what her long-awaited arrival means for representation and transparency in Washington. And we close with the paradox of time travel, the chaos of modern dating apps, and a reminder on World Kindness Day that even in a complicated world, small acts of intentional kindness still change everything. I'm Handel. Be curious, be kind, and top off that cup. Till next time.